The wind howled through the broken windows of the old abandoned hospital. Overgrown vines clung to the decaying structure, making it look like a place time had forgotten. It was the kind of building that people dared each other to enter, and most never made it past the front gate. But for Sarah, Jake, and Emily, it wasn't just a dare, it was a challenge. The trio had always been fascinated by urban legends and ghost stories, spending countless nights watching paranormal investigation shows. When they heard about the haunted hospital on the outskirts of town, they couldn't resist the temptation. Rumors claimed that the spirits of patients who died tragically still lingered there, wandering the halls, searching for peace. Some locals even whispered that the doctors had performed cruel, experimental procedures, trapping the souls of their victims within the hospital's walls. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a deep sense of curiosity, the three friends arrived at the hospital just after sunset. The iron gate creaked as Jake pushed it open, revealing a cracked path leading to the front entrance. Sarah hesitated for a moment, her nerves prickling. "You sure about this?" she asked, her voice a little shaky. Jake smirked, trying to mask his own fear. "It's just an old building, Sarah. We've been to places like this before." "Yeah, but this one feels different," Emily whispered, glancing at the darkened windows, half expecting to see someone, or something, watching them from inside. They stood before the massive peeling doors, which seemed like the last barrier between them and the unknown. With a deep breath, Jake pushed one of the doors open, its rusted hinges groaning loudly. Inside, the air was thick and stale, and the smell of mildew filled their noses. Their flashlights cast long, eerie shadows across the walls, illuminating the remains of old gurneys, shattered glass, and medical equipment strewn about, as if the hospital had been abandoned in a hurry. "Stick together," Jake said, his voice lower now as they moved deeper into the building. They began in the lobby, which was once likely a bustling place filled with nurses, doctors, and patients waiting for treatment. Now it was a desolate, forgotten shell. A few dusty chairs remained upright while others had toppled over, their legs bent at odd angles. The walls were covered in graffiti, some of it strange symbols they couldn't understand. As they made their way down the main hallway, Sarah's camera clicked, capturing the decay. She had taken to photographing all of their urban explorations, a hobby that had grown into an obsession. But tonight, something about the photos made her uneasy. Every time she reviewed a picture, strange distortions appeared on the screen. Shadowy figures, blurry faces that hadn't been there when she took the shot. "Look at this," she whispered, showing the others her camera. Jake and Emily leaned in, staring at the screen. In one photo, what looked like a figure in a hospital gown was standing at the end of the hallway, though they knew no one else was with them. "That's creepy," Emily said, her voice tight. "Could just be dust or something, right?" "Maybe," Sarah replied, but her gut told her otherwise. They continued walking, their footsteps echoing through the empty corridors. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Sarah hugged herself, rubbing her arms to fight off the sudden chill. "Do you feel that?" she asked. "It's freezing." Jake nodded, pulling his jacket tighter around him. "Hospitals are creepy enough when they're running," he said with a nervous laugh, "but this place feels like a tomb." Just then, they heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. It was distant at first, barely noticeable, but then it grew louder, as if it was coming from just around the corner. "Tap, tap, tap. Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "Yeah," Jake muttered, shining his flashlight toward the sound, probably just water dripping. But when they turned the corner, they found themselves standing in front of a set of double doors marked surgical wing. The tapping stopped abruptly. The doors creaked open as if they had been waiting for them. "I don't like this," Sarah said, stepping back. But Jake was already moving forward, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Come on, we came this far," he said over his shoulder. "Might as well see what's inside." They entered the surgical wing where rusted surgical tables stood covered in dust. The dim light from their flashlights flickered over medical instruments, scalpels, clamps, and syringes, all left behind as if the doctors had simply walked away one day. The air was thicker here, carrying the faint metallic smell of old blood. Sarah's heart raced. The walls seemed to close in around her, suffocating her with a sense of dread. And then they heard it, a soft, raspy whisper that sent chills down their spines. "Help, Me. Emily froze. Did you hear that? Jake nodded slowly, his face pale. Yeah, I did. The whisper came again, this time louder, more insistent. Help, me, please. Sarah's camera flashed, and when she looked at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. Standing at the end of the room was the figure of a woman in a hospital gown, her eyes hollow and her face gaunt. She was reaching out to them, her bony fingers trembling. I think we need to leave, Sarah stammered, backing away slowly. But before they could move, the doors behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang, trapping them inside. Panic surged through Emily as she grabbed the handle and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. We're locked in, she cried, her voice trembling. The temperature plummeted, their breath visible in the cold air. Shadows danced across the walls, flickering in and out of their vision. The whispers grew louder, filling the room with an agonizing chorus of voices, all begging for help, for release, for an end to their suffering. Suddenly, one of the surgical tables began to move on its own, the wheels squeaking as it slid across the floor. Instruments clattered to the ground, and the woman in the hospital gown stepped closer, her feet dragging, leaving a trail of bloody footprints in her wake. We need to get out of here, Jake yelled, frantically trying to force the doors open, but they wouldn't budge. The ghostly woman reached them, her hand brushing against Sarah's arm, and the chill that ran through her body was unbearable. Sarah screamed, dropping her camera, as the woman's touch sent a wave of cold, numbing pain through her. Just when they thought it was the end, the doors flew open with a loud crash. They didn't hesitate. The three friends bolted, running as fast as they could, the whispers following them down the hall until they burst out of the hospital and into the night. They didn't stop until they reached the car. Panting and shaking, they looked back at the hospital, now silent and still. But Sarah's camera still lay inside, the last photo it captured showing the ghost of the woman, standing just inches behind them.